I have thoughts on this too. How's it going, YouTube lovers? This is the Evil Rammer. Welcome back to another edition of Eabs Book Club, where today I am here to review the second issue of the Murder Drones graphic novel. Yeah, I reviewed the first one already. You can go ahead and click the I in the top corner to check out that video before you watch this one. But, you know, like I said, I'm going to be well, not really reacting, but reviewing all of these graphic novels as they come out, and I'll be able to talk about them. I always want to talk more Murder Drones anyway, so this is a great excuse for it. So I'll be reviewing this second one now like I did the first, which is once again, like the first one, written by Wyatt Kennedy, with illustrations by Mi-Gyeong. So it is the same creative team as last time. And I'm excited to check this one out. I have a lot to talk about because I think it's no secret that there were issues fans like myself had with the first issue, ironically, of this graphic novel adaptation. So the question is, did they address and fix those complaints in issue number 2? Well, not really. There's one thing that was better, but other stuff that honestly kind of got worse. So I'll be talking about that because once again, like the first video, I'm going to be splitting this into 3 sections to talk about this graphic novel. First, I'm going to go over basically a plot summary, talking about the way that this is adapting the show and following it along. Then in the middle, I'm going to go over what I didn't really like, the changes they made that I didn't really like about this graphic novel, but I want to end it on a positive note. So then after that, I'm going to talk about a particular change in this one that I thought actually really worked well, and I think it was almost better than the show in some ways. So there you go. That's that's the plan for today. The timestamps will be, along the bottom of the video and everything. And before we get going, I do want to leave here before we go a spoiler warning and an opinion warning, because once again, I'm going to be talking about both the comic book and the show. So I'll be talking about the story, obviously spoilers, with an opinion warning, because everything I say here is how I feel about it, and I honestly don't care if you think otherwise. That's part of the fun of opinions, is you don't have to agree. But anyway, let's go ahead and jump into talking about this graphic novel. First, let's go over the plot, because there's a lot of plot in this book. So it starts off actually with kind of like a text message exchange style thing between Uzi and N, almost like the two of them and us as the reader are in a group chat together. Basically, it's a small recap of the previous issue just to get the reader caught up. And I like it because it, follows along with the meta style humor that the show has always had. And it's having something like that as a recap is honestly a good thing for comic issues anyway. But anyway, getting to the actual nit and gritty story of this graphic novel, it actually starts with one of the most accurately adapted things that the graphic novels have done. And that is the flashback at the beginning from episode 2 to the Elliot Manor, where we see James Elliot, throw a glass over for N to catch. And then N ends up walking into V, and they share a moment where their hands touch and there's a spark between them, showing their relation, the little kindle of their relationship. And then Jay shows up and bullies N because she sucks. And then Tessa shows up with a newly reawakened Sin, and then it smash cuts to the present where N wakes up. So far, so good. Actually, a pretty good adaptation of what we got in the show. And when I say smash cut, I mean literally not just because it's a different panel, but also they actually put the text that says smash cut transition on the screen. They do that a number of times in this particular issue of the graphic novel. There's a lot of those text-based jokes, and I really appreciate it because there were a lot of fun details in Murder Drones. If you just paused and read the text that was on the screen, there were a lot of good jokes going around in a bunch of that. Like, you didn't even need to pause on that, but in the prom episode, it has, the sign on the punch bowl that says, hey, do not drink. You will super die because you're a robot. Stuff like that is all throughout the show. So I really appreciate them putting that into the way that the graphic novel flows together. But anyway, after we get through that, we smash cut. We have, Uzi and N with V who's chained up currently, blowing bubbles in the pod. Uzi is starting to see the solver symbol pop up on her visor, and V is, mocking her for it and mocking her kill all humans plan and dealing with all of that. And they're just trying to figure things out. It's, setting up that character dynamic. And meanwhile, back at the bunker, poor, Laddertron 9000 Frank. Was it 9,000? I think it was 9,000. Either way, his name was Frank. That's the name he'd rather be remembered by. But he is there to, clean up and repair some of the damages done to the bunker during the fight in the last issue. But then the core from Jay's corpse crawls out of her chest and attacks. So 07's in the chat for poor Frank. But anyway, news of this whole thing reaches En and Uzi, because what Thad tells them that Jay's body kind of crawled away by itself when he brings Uzi's railgun to them. So they decide, we should go back to the bunker and we should check this all out. And what takes them a little bit to get there, though, and Jay's corpse is basically going around attacking and killing other drones around the bunker, and also using holograms to trick them. And one of these holograms ends up outside of the classroom where Lizzie and Doll are currently sitting during the parent-teacher conference that's going on. And when En and Uzi and Thad arrive back at the bunker, they end up coming face to face with Jay's mutated corpse. And then a big fight begins, but another smash cut, because we see the parent-teacher conference going on with Khan and Uzi's teacher, which, pretty standard. That's what we saw in episode 2. But this is where we start to get a little bit of a change in storytelling and a change in pacing compared to the original show, because while Uzi's teacher is talking to Khan, he says, look, if you want to be more present for your daughter, we need chaperones for the prom, a prom that is that same night. Yep. Episodes 2 and 3 both take place in this comic, as kind of overlapping a little bit in the middle, and then but basically episode 2, episode 3 completely smashed together like that. So I have thoughts on this, about the way that they handled this, and I will talk about that in the next section. But anyway, back to the summary of the story. While that's all going on, and the plot really starts changing here, Lizzie notices that Doll is gone. Doll didn't save her from her own stupidity from opening the door this time. Instead, Doll took the opportunity to sneak off and go off killing the prom queen candidate. So yeah, the opening scene of episode 3 is taking place before the end of episode 2 in this version of the story. Again, I have thoughts. But anyway, she's doing that, using her solver powers to kill the prom queens as part of her complicated, convoluted revenge plot. But back with the fight with Eldritch J, Uzi gets shown a hologram of her mom, which is the first time we really see Nori in this, in any part of the story. So it's showing that, hey, Nori's connected to this, because the solver's going, oh, it hurts our feelings, you don't remember us. So it shows that there is a greater connection going on between the solver and Uzi and her mom. But then the solver also shows Uzi holograms meant to trick her, so holograms that don't look like holograms, of the bodies of both En and her dad Khan. And this stuns her for a moment in shock, and that gives the eldritch creature a chance to break her railgun. But that ends up being the wrong thing to do, because the railgun then explodes and basically eviscerates all that's left of Jay's body, leaving just her core. And that allows En to then stab it with his tail and actually kill it. And then Khan shows up at this point to reunite with Uzi, and they do, and then En takes that as his signal to leave. So there you go. We're pretty much done with episode 2, but episode 3 has already started, so we're not done with the storytelling yet, because this is when Khan gives Uzi the news that, hey, I'm chaperoning prom tonight, and you're going. Non-negotiable. So that news is broken, but at the same time, because like I said, En left, he goes back to the pod to tell V about everything that happened, and he finds that she's already gone, and she left a note saying that she's going to kill at the prom. I have thoughts on this too, but again, I will get to that in a bit. I keep hinting at what I'm going to talk about a little bit much. Just focus on the plot summary right now, Eabs. Let's just focus on that right now. So V is already going off to the prom, and when she arrives there with the intention of killing everyone, she's caught off guard when she's actually crowned prom queen. And she's like, oh, Okay. But of course, that's not even real either, because while she was tricking Lizzie to try to kill everyone else, Lizzie and Doll were tricking V so that Doll can get her revenge on V for killing her parents, which is something that happened when Uzi accidentally led the murder drones back to the bunker in the previous issue. So, she's getting ready to kill V, and that's when Uzi and N show up, who apparently reunited off screen, for lack of a better term, and they end up defending V from Doll because, hey, whoever is, orchestrating all these horrible things wants us to fight amongst ourselves. We need to all just band together. And Doll's like, no, I'm not working with the murder drones. I'm not doing this. And she fights back. They have a big fight, and it ends with V shooting Doll through the head and presumably killing her. But we all know that that's not really how it works. But anyway, Uzi gets the key to Doll's place off of her corpse, and the trio, Uzi, N, and V, go off to Doll's house in search of clues, and they find basically a bunch of mangled drone corpses that Doll has been using as a food source. And they also find the bodies of her parents who were, like I said, were killed by V. But while they're investigating that, Doll actually teleports in. She shows up. She's not quite dead, and she fires the bullet back at the crowd with the intention of finishing the job that she started during the prom. But then Uzi's solver activates, and she actually catches the bullet and saves herself. When Doll sees that Uzi is dealing with the same infection that she has, she tells her, "Oh, I'm so sorry that you're dealing with this. I will help you too if I find what I'm looking for." And then she just teleports away, and Uzi is left still not knowing what the heck is going on. But yeah, so I was curious after reading the first issue how they were going to handle the pacing of this, considering that even after they added the special bonus home issue that's going to cover episode 5 to the list, that was still fewer issues of comics than there were episodes in the show. So I knew they were going to have to mush some things together eventually. And to be fair, episode 2 is literally the shortest episode of the series. So if you're going to be doing it, this is the time to do it, because the episodes are just going to get longer when you get to the later ones. So this was the time to do it. But either way, the artwork is still really good in this issue. There's a few odd details and potentially mistakes in there as well. I think for 2 panels, Doll's outfit just randomly switches to her prom dress while she's at the parent-teacher conference, and then it switches back afterwards. So it's a little awkward, but I just really like seeing these Murder Drones characters in a 2D art style. It makes me wish that we had more art drawn by Liam himself. The creator of Murder Drones, Liam Vickers, because most of his stuff he's done is 2D artwork, and I wish we had more of the stuff that he drew for these characters. We have the concept art, it's great. I just wish he drew more as the show was going. I'm grateful that we have the drawing of Uzi and N that he did for the Stargazing with Murderous Intent remix that he did, and then also the art of Sin that he drew for the Forever full version cover arts from AG Despirito. So I just really like when we get 2D art of Murder Drone characters, because it just feels very Liam, the way that it's presented in the graphic novel, because it also makes me wish that we had more of Liam's art. So that was the plot of the second issue of the Murder Drones graphic novel. Like I was teasing, I have a lot of opinions and thoughts on how they handled some of this stuff. So I really want to talk about that. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about things that were not great. So yeah, there are still some detrimental differences between the comic and the show. Of course, there's some pretty bad character stuff in this one that I feel got worse, but I talked about the pacing and my issues with that a bunch, so I'm going to start with that, because the pacing in this graphic novel is breakneck speed. And I'm not just talking about the fact that it covers the 2 episodes, because like I said, that was going to happen eventually, and if they were going to do it, this was the time to do it, because episode 2 is the shortest one. It's the fact that the timing of these is just mushed together. The fact that the first 3 episodes worth of the show is practically happening back to back to back. Like, there seems to be almost no time between like the last issue and this one, and then episode three's plot is just crammed literally same night against episode two. It just cuts out so much time for things that need to happen, basically. Like, I know that the first half of the show with its episodes had a lot of time skips between them, which made it a little bit difficult, for some people to follow along. But there's just like, it feels too fast paced. Like, everything feels like it's happening in the span of like 2 days now for almost half the show. And because of that, there's actually stuff that it completely skips over. Like I said, a main issue that I had there was that there was no gap between the 2 and 3. Means that Uzi didn't get a chance to start to feel guilty about telling En to go away and leaving him. But actually, come to think of it, they don't even have that at all in the comic. There's no, what are you things that she's scared of the murder drones after seeing what Eldritch J did. It's just, yeah, they just split because Khan showed up. And then, like I said, they show up later at the prom, just like nothing has happened. They split there after Khan shows up when Eldritch J is defeated, and then they're just back together back at the prom. They completely cut out the scene where they reunite because if you didn't have the emotional guilt and everything, then there was no reason for them to have that scene. But it feels very important in the development of their relationship to have that scene. And there's other stuff that got cut because of the pacing as well. It's like I mentioned, the hologram showing up at the school where Lizzie and Doll were. They still have in the comic the part where Lizzie's like, oh, that girl looking at a hologram of herself, that girl is gorgeous, I'm gonna let her in. They still have that part of it, but they don't have the payoff of it because Lizzie just never opens the door or makes an attempt to. Because in the show, Doll uses her solver powers to stop Lizzie from doing it. That never happens here. Lizzie just says, oh, I'm gonna open the door, and then we come back to her, she just doesn't, with no explanation whatsoever. It just feels like, oh, we have to put that in here because of the lines there from Lizzie are, pretty memorable. But then they forgot they were supposed to do the other part of it. It's not great. But also another change that was on there that I feel like, it's kind of there, but like in lesser sense because of the pacing is, I had mentioned how the solver, when it wanted to trick Uzi, used holograms of Khan and En's bodies, like holding it up in its claws to say, oh, look, I've killed your friends and family. But in the show, it actually like has the hologram of Khan be still alive, and then it rips him apart in front of Uzi to traumatize her. That's a really impactful scene. I still distinctly remember my reaction to that scene when I watched it for the first time when I first saw this show. But all we get is just like a kind of reference to it in a single panel. That's it. It just completely skips that over. So there's a few more things that were cut that I didn't mention, but basically a lot of stuff that adds up fast. And you have like the shortest episode of the show is having content cut from it in the adaptation. And it's a lot of things that either like add to character development or relationship development, or it's just something that's super impactful that when you change it, it just doesn't hit the same way, which is annoying because I thought there was some stuff that actually did hit better in the first issue, but there's stuff that doesn't in this one because of the pacing of it and the way they cut stuff out. But yeah, no, pacing is just, it's way too fast for the content it's trying to cover in this graphic novel. And something that kind of like, bleeds over a little bit into that, but ends up being its own issue. My other big detrimental issue I have with this issue is, once again, the adaptation is severely doing a bad job at handling V as a character. At first I thought they were getting back on track. The whole thing that adapts like episodes 2 story and everything actually seemed like we were getting back to the V we were supposed to have. We had the flashback, like I said, which was almost like a one-to-one of the show, like very, very well done, showing like her and N's relationship, a little tease of it when they were a maid and butler, respectively, at the Elliott Manor. And then it has like her blowing bubbles and chained up in the pod, and the way she's talking to Uzi, antagonizing her and everything is very, very accurate. And she's also barely in episode 2, so those are like her main like important scenes there. Like, yes, there's a thing where it shows her breaking free the chain, but because they're smushing stuff together, I'm okay with them kind of writing that off a little bit and saving it for another scene, kind of. But that's the thing. They don't save it for another scene. So the episode 2 stuff actually is pretty good, but once they get to the promming, it's just they really, her character just kind of falls apart. Granted, like I said, there are a bunch of time skips between stuff, but in the show, but because they have things happening back to back in the graphic novel, they don't give V time to develop a very key relationship to her, besides obviously N. And that's Lizzie, her friendship with Lizzie, because that was the whole point, is that the two of them were hanging out off screen to develop a friendship, and that's how basically they both ended up trying to trick each other. In this one, Lizzie says that V is her friend, but we never get any indication of that. At least the show gave us, a slideshow of photos of them hanging out. But the graphic novel, because of the way it seems like these 3 episodes worth of story are taking place in like a 2-day span, there's no time for that. Like, we leave V in the pod when Uzi and N go off with Thad to deal with Eldritch J, and by the time N gets back, V's already gone. There's no time for her to have been, having a friendship with Lizzie during all of that. It just feels like they completely skipped over the time allowed for that. Like, it's okay if you want to, again, like I said, it's okay if you want to smush these 2 episodes together if you're not going to do, 1 per episode for the graphic novel adaptation. These were the 2 episodes that if you're going to put them together, this is the one to do it with. But they're needed to putting the prom the same night as Eldritch J's murder spree. That just completely ruins the pacing of it, and even worse. And because V can't have that relationship with Lizzie at all. We just needed like a little bit of a time skip. You've been doing the text gags, like I said, the whole graphic novel about smash cuts and things like that. You could have put something in there to show like, a week later or something like that. Something to show that there was a bit of time progression where this could have happened and fit this in. But like I said, even worse than, skipping over her friendship with Lizzie, because I said, they go off to fight Eldritch J, and then N comes back and V's already gone. They cut out a really important scene between N and V. In the show, in episode 3, N is practically begging V to provide any information that she has about their past life at the manor, because he's like, I only have pieces of it. Even if you only have pieces, we could work together and we could figure this out. Please tell me what you know. Don't you have any reason to be curious about what we actually are? And it's actually a great scene, because in the show we also get to see V's reaction to that. There's like hurt in her face. It looks like there's definitely something under the surface. It seems like she actually cares about N more than she's letting on. It makes her so much more of a complex character. That was the beginning of giving her an actual character arc in the show. Here, like I said, she's gone by the time he gets back. They never had this conversation. And here, let me actually read the note she left to you as well, to give you an idea of what we got going on here. It says, "Hey loser, got hungry, going to go do prom murder. We'll bring you back some small purple one if there's leftovers. P.S. No, I don't remember a haunted mansion. P.P.S. Stop prying into the haunted mansion." They basically replaced a moment that was a personal interaction with vulnerability, and they replaced it with a completely impersonal note. I don't understand the reason for that, other than, like the whole length of the graphic novel, which you could spare another page for that. You could spare 1 page, half a page even, to cover that, because that's a really important moment, not only for V's character, but also for N's development. of realizing, oh, that's like that starts planting the seeds of, oh, my teammates know more about what's going on and they're not telling me. That starts planting the seed for N right there, but they just completely cut it out. I honestly, that's probably one of the worst things that this graphic novel has done, and it's definitely the worst thing it's done in regards to V's character. I'm kind of starting to run out of hope for V in the graphic novel, which is such a shame because she's the third member of the dynamic trio that we have in this show, and she's also, on a personal note, my absolute favorite character because of her complexity, because of the character arc that she has. I didn't like her in the pilot. I didn't care for her, and then by episode 6, I was horrified by the fact that they might have just killed her off. I grew really fond of this character, and I'm losing hope that she's not going to be, totally butchered in this adaptation and that her character is just going to be completely ruined. Anyway, I wanted to end on a positive note, of course, for this video and talk about a change in this that I actually think is really good. And surprisingly, despite all the stuff I just talked about with V, this is actually a good character change that they did. This one is about Khan, and which is even more surprising because when I talked about the last issue, I talked about how they kind of messed up Khan in the way that they did him, the scene where he abandons Uzi. I think that they did a terrible job with that in the graphic novel. But in this one, not only do they course correct, I think they actually made his stuff a bit better. Because we always know that of course, he ends up as a chaperone at the prom because he wants to, be there for Uzi when he hasn't been. But in the graphic novel, we actually get to see that process of how he ends up becoming the chaperone. Because it's during the this is actually one thing I like about them connecting the prom to episode 2 a bit, is during the parent-teacher conference with Uzi's teacher, the teacher's the one that brings up, hey, we need more chaperones. And he literally says this because a bunch of the other adults just got bisected during the last attack on the bunker by the disassembly drones. It's like, we need more chaperones for the prom. This is I think you should go there because you need to, be better for your daughter. And Khan is actually like, yes, I'm going to do that. I'm going to be that strong father figure that she needs. Let's do this. He actually is super motivated when he leaves the classroom at that point. I love that. It's such a good change for his character to show that he genuinely regrets the mistakes that he's made with Uzi, and he's trying to be better. And honestly, even better is after they defeat Eldridge J, because, that's when Khan finds Uzi and they reunite, and she's, going through a lot, and they hug, of course, and that still plays out. But the way it plays out, I think actually has a lot of good little detail in it. The first thing being that, Uzi herself actually calls out to her dad when she runs up to hug him, showing that there's a bit more emotion from her there. That's she's going through a lot, and she is still the angsty, rebellious teenager. But even then, a teenager still needs their parents sometimes. And so instead of standing there kind of creepily and quietly like she did in the show before she hugged him, she actually yells out to him as she rushes up and hugs him. And I love that. And even better is Khan's response to it when he hugs her back is he's basically like, hey, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's what you're supposed to do as a parent. It shows immediately that Khan knows he messed up and he is trying to be better for his daughter. I love it. They actually managed to take a character who, in the first issue kind of was not done correctly, and they honestly presenting him better here than he was at this point in the show. And I love that. And it honestly makes me excited for potentially seeing a scene in number 3 when the next graphic novel issue comes out, when they adapt Cabin Fever, which is episode 4, the camping episode. Because at the beginning of that episode, we have a scene where Khan shows Uzi the closet that's full of all of Nori's, kooky, insane stuff. And he shows it to her and he talks about oh, I wasn't the right person for your mom. I don't think I'm the right person for you either to deal with all of this stuff. Here's all the stuff that I have from your mom. Please be safe out there while you figure this out. And it's a good scene anyway. That's how the show showed Khan's development more. But if we already have this development starting and be even better in the second issue of the graphic novel, I feel like if they do adapt that scene, I actually have hope that it's going to be really good. Like even if maybe it's just going to be, even if it's just a 1-to-1, it would be good. But I feel like it has the opportunity to take it even further because of what they've already done with Khan's character now. So I really like what they did with Khan here. Like genuinely, I'm surprised by saying that. I never thought I would like particularly be fond of how they handle Khan, but they did a good job with him here. I think it really shows his regret and his desire to be better. So there you go. That was a lot. Like I said, I had a lot to talk about, and I had a lot of plot to cover, but that was the second Murder Drones graphic novel. Again, I plan to keep making book club videos, reviewing each of these as they come out, even with the issues that I've had with them, because genuinely this second issue didn't really do anything to instill confidence that the rest of the adaptation is going to be better. In fact, they've made it worse in some places. Like I said, like with the pacing and with V's character in particular, they somehow did worse with this one than they did with the first one. So I don't have a lot of confidence in that part of it going forward. But what's interesting is they did actually send an email to everyone who supported it, all the backers, and they promised some actually pretty good changes. I have the email pulled up here, and the key thing I wanted to bring up from it is the fact that they said they're working behind the scenes to add even more murder and drones to your Murder Drones comics. Because the standard American comic release is 20 to 22 pages an issue, and they realize that's not enough space to do true justice to Liam Vickers' vision. Yes, that's what we've been saying as fans the entire time. Especially since the first one came out. That's when it made it clear. But they said, like, in addition to the fact that they're adding a 30-plus page home special to adapt episode 5, they're also going to go back and they're going to add more pages to the first issue to try to better pace it out and add more detail to it, which is awesome. Which is resulting in a bit of a adjustment for the release timeline. But they're actually going to go back and update number 1. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a full review when the updated version comes out. I might just do like a quick short if it's anything significant. But they're actually going to go back and update number 1, which is really cool. Unfortunately, it doesn't mention that they might be updating number 2. It just says that like they're updating number 1 and they're going to basically expand the future ones as well. I don't think they really mentioned, it doesn't look like they really mentioned updating number 2, which is, like I said, is unfortunate, but the increased length in general should be good, especially since we won't have to cram episodes into graphic novels together anymore. I think that cramming these two together, like how many did they have again? It was, yeah, they're going to do 6, and then they added home, and then they put these two together. So that would cover all 8. So basically, it's going to be one episode an issue going forward. So the fact that they're adding, additional pages to them is going to be huge. I think that's actually going to be, that might be able to fix the pacing, especially because the episodes are going to get longer and they have a lot more content. And yeah, they also even say in here, it cannot be said, thank you for passionate support of this series and for letting us know when we screw up too. So they're clearly listening to criticism and feedback, which is why I'm hoping they're listening to all the stuff people are saying about this second one, because the response from the fans that I saw was even more brutal than the first novel's reception was. So I know obviously some stuff takes it a little bit too far, but hopefully they are paying attention to the legitimate criticism. Hopefully they are looking at it and going, oh, we need to either course correct or go back and add more pages to issue 2, like we're doing with the rest of the series. It would be kind of weird if they just kind of leave episode 2 the way it is, especially since it's supposed to adapt double the episodes as the rest of the issues. So I hope that they do that. And again, big criticism I have right now that's really making it painful for me is the fact that V's character has been so butchered so far. So I really hope, especially with the more focus on V we're going to get in the next issue and then a couple issues after that, with her sacrifice being a key point, I really hope they don't screw that up. I really hope that they can get her character back on track for that. So, yeah. Yeah, not a lot of confidence in how they're going to keep going, but there is hope potentially with the fact that they're adding all these new pages. So I'm going to keep reviewing these issues of the Murder Drones graphic novel as they come out. Like I said, I probably won't do a full video, and I may do a short on the changes to issue 1, depending on what those actually entail. But yep, there you go. That is going to do it for this edition of Eabs Book Club. Next time actually is going to be this month, because I'm going to be reviewing the Prison of Plastic book from the Epithet Erase series. I reacted to the first few chapters of the audiobook that they uploaded to YouTube, and then I read the rest of the book myself, and so now I'm so excited to be able to talk about that. It's gonna be a lot of fun going over that. That series is really fun, and I love those characters. And as I put in a post, I also am going to be reading the Hello Neighbor novels, and eventually I'll be doing at least one video, probably multiple videos on that, because I'm going to do one video covering the first trilogy that they did, but there's another trilogy and then like an extra 7th book after that. So there might be like up to 3 videos on Hello Neighbor novels at this point. We'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, this was the Murder Drones #2 graphic novel. Man, it's a little disappointing that, you know, we pledged so much money to support this, and it's just getting so much wrong from the show. But they do seem to actually be paying attention. Oni Press knows that this is a very avid, passionate fan base. Completely blew their expectations out of the water in crowdfunding, so hopefully they'll be able to listen to those same fans and be able to deliver a product that is, you know, higher quality and does a better job with the show that it's adapting. But anyway, that's going to do it for this video. Hope you all enjoyed it. Please drop a like, comment down below if you did. Or subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you all on the next one. Bye, guys!